Having issues today. Having the issues today. All of the issues must come my way. I'm hoping this works. Let me pull a chat on my phone. Hopefully this works. I think I'm the only one watching my stream. Okay. I think I'm now paranoid that it's just going to give out on me. Probably will, knowing my luck. Okay. I was just pulling up chat on my phone so I can see it. So, I don't know which episode, what this will be. If this will be Resident Evil or one of the Final Fantasy parts. And I'm saying that because, well, I just want to relax. I'm a bit burnt out on Final Fantasy ff7, so until somebody joins, I will just be working on the world. I haven't really worked on it recently. Setting something else up right now. No one's here still, so I am still on my own. We're just gonna... There it is. Oh, this is still on. I didn't even realize that was still on. Oh, that's still on too. Okay, so almost all the files I have are working except like one. Cool. I figured I just enabled it without even realizing it. Put the food in the kitchen, that's what I was forgetting. And close the stream and reopen it and see if... Nope, I'm on my own. And that happens. who spawned in the middle of my wheat field. That was a weird dog. Hi, Mr. Nubs. I didn't even realize somebody was here. Chat got closed on my phone again. How was your day? A new spot. It was work. Yeah, that happens. Has there been any good news at least? Oh, don't. So I need to plan something. With our friend group, right? And contact all of them. I did let one of our friends know about it because I'm sorry if that was not okay. I just ran into him while I was doing grocery shopping, honestly. Getting used to the delay. I'm going to do something before you move because you are our friend. And this is you're one of my friends since high school. And plus, I like doing, plus the thought process is that we'll do it, we'll have fun, we'll have memories. So I'll probably text the friend group this week to figure out the plan. Yeah. Which makes sense. It's how I've been doing things. Is it still the state you last told me about? Okay. I don't know the chance of this, but I did not plant that cherry blossom. It was auto generated there. There's a delay between my phone, the stream on my Xbox, and my phone, and then me processing the info from chat. Hello, Eve. Gosh. I hope you had a nice nap. It's a lot of stuff at once. I'm sorry, I can't even remember where I was, what my brain thought process was. Well, I'm streaming through my Xbox. So, I can't remember how to get this out. I'm just stuck with that. Reading words. Oh, it's my reading world. Yeah, this is the world that when I do, like, because there is no official audiobooks for, like, the Final Fantasy VII books, I made this world so that way there was something on the screen when I was reading, when I'm reading it out loud for my cousins and people. Because there's no official audiobooks for any of the Final Fantasy VII books. That's actually, like, really pretty. I haven't been playing on it because I've been more focused on the Realm stuff. Which, I need to look something up in a second. No, I cannot see chat. Okay. I now know how much I have to hand somebody. You can do anything you want with it. Like, the only thing that I was debating on it was, like, potentially tearing it down just for the wood. There's so much stuff in that world. We'll put this stuff in this chest. Oh, look. Oh, wait, I did install the waypoint stuff. I forgot what I have on this world. Oh, I have to crouch to pick up that book. That's what that is. If I remember correctly. Crouch? Yes! I picked it up. You can see it. My rendering distance is way up, I will admit, so you'll be able to see like things decent amount of thing blocks away. Ah, so you're just going to have a whole, but you're going to have a shipyard essentially. I could switch honestly over to the realm. The better question is, do I want to? Ooh. Am I gotta remember where I'm at on that world. Don't think I'm on that island right now. So I could switch over. That means running up the hill. Okay. Let me think here. Do I just want to do a Minecraft stream today? Or just do Minecraft for the day and... Because, like, part of me wants to play Final Fantasy, but it's also burning me out right now. Oh, I am getting a call. I'm gonna pause the stream really quick. Okay, I am back. Okay. I am back. My uncle called. Talk to my grandparents. On my phone. Yep. Is Mr. Nub still here, or did he head out? Why does... I would like to organize things, game. Okay, I couldn't tell. True, I should have done that in my... Oh, I might switch this over to the realm realistically. Yeah, they have. Let's see here. You can literally just make them in your inventory if you have 2 materials. Which is sort of nice because that means people can make a bundle. Better question is, can you put full bundles? No. If a bundle is full, it... We're about to do bundle inception. A bundle. In 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 a chest. Yeah. There isn't. Cooked chicken. Cool. Don't think I can actually cook this right now. slightly upset because I know I have horses. I just forgot to lead them. And they have wandered off. Is that... That can't be. If this is what I think it is, I'm going to be angry. Oh, there's my sheep. There's my sheep. There's my sheep. Thought she disappeared. Nope. Just wandered off and got herself stuck. Can anyone tell that I really, really, really like the fireflies? I really like the fireflies. I need to figure out how to put some over here. Let's see here. Yoink one. And we'll replace it here. And slowly. Yes, you will. I need another one. You're yoinking this one. Put it right down here. Why did it leave out your animals in the chat? That's a question I now have. Well, I have a stable for the horses that I finally built. I just haven't built anything for the other animals yet. Thing. Do I want to switch? Okay, we'll deal with that later. Why is the rabbit pelt in there? Can you tell how much mining I have done? Pretty much. I've also dug up. All my animals just wander around and I let them. There's another. I have more bundles than I thought. Whoops. Why? Why are there rabbit pelts just randomly around? Power, loyalty, and efficiency. I need to get a Triton. But I don't want to bring a Triton. I don't want to turn on mobs. Because that's how I die. A lot. I don't like that. I have to deal with that at some point. I want to build, but I also don't want to build. Dear Lord, if it was, we would be on World 5 by now. Trust me. I need to change the roof and the foundation of this house at some point. Ha, 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 ha. Listen, I like jumping off of high things. Falling is fun. Did you do it? Boop. I feel like that's too flat. Figure that out at some point. Okay. So I need to text Red and Blue and see if they're going to join the stream today. Because if they are, that limits my games from down to thanks. Listen, I really like jumping off of things. Like, I'll tell this story again because I don't have the world no more. And if I still had the world, I 100% would pull it up when I was, like, either in high school with you, Mr. Nub, or middle school, maybe junior high. It's better. I had a world that I shared with my sisters, and I built like a very, very, very rough version of Kingdom Hearts, King Mickey's Castle, and I was working on the Twilight Tower at the time. And I will say this, I loved to just jump off of it. I'd run to the top, I would have a bed at the top, and I would sleep in the bed, and then jump off the top. That is literally the whole point of that world. That's what it became. And sometimes I did build a fountain, like, right out in front of it, so sometimes I would jump trying to get into the fountain. My sisters just shook their heads. I went, okay, that's our sister. That's what she does. They, of course, started to build, I believe, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, just as a way of going, haha, we have King Mickey's castle and we have Mickey Mouse's clubhouse now. So just a... Yeah. I will say this, like, if I ever do get them on to stream, or do a stream with them, I'll ask them it was over like 100, like, username died to falling. My sisters would get so mad that I would get straight up, they would destroy the bed, so I would go back to the spawn point and have to trudge my way back. They would hide the diamond pickaxes and put obsidian in front of it, only removing it after a few hours, just to make sure. Ha ha ha. I get to be a funny person. Honestly, I don't know what to do right now. Like, part of me wants to play games, but part of me doesn't. Let's put this stuff away. You are a reference. And you are a reference. I will say this. I will 100% be naming the animals as references to other things. So, like, this is one of my... he's named after not one of my favorite characters, but named after a character from a old book series I used to read. That's still ongoing. This one is named after a cat in the Final Fantasy books. I have like so many floors to this house. This feels dumb because there's this floor, then this. Does this still has things in it? I didn't finish cleaning. No. Realistically, if I was smarter. Storage rooms would be down here. Oh! I thought I emptied it! I'm making a mess of my Minecraft house. Okay. Well, we're just going to go put things away now. After I dumped everything everywhere. Yeah, that's why I started. This is just going into my inventory at this point. So that way I have more room to put things in here. Oh no. Dear Lord. Sweet, I can't. Okay, let's pull up these then. These somewhere else. Some point. Oh, there's still something in my inventory. Oh my gosh, they have so much stuff. Go down. Oh. Look, more dirt. Yeah, I'm still recording. Okay. Up the ladder. You know. Could I? Technically could. Okay. So I need to go to sleep. So it's daytime again. Don't jump. Excuse me. Oh, you meant that jump, didn't you? Let's do. Yeah, no, I'm still. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Duh. Okay. Do you want... Question. Because there's another Final Fantasy that I have. There's actually at least 2 others that I have. There's only one that's already on my Xbox right now. We're not looking at that. Would you guys want to see it? It is rated M for mature. My pickaxes are down here. What am I doing? What about Mr. Nubs? I'm more worried about red or blue joining. Not doing that. This. More this. 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 Is Mr. Nub still here? Can't tell. Says that he is. It's a different game. Okay, I'm gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna text my cousins to see if they're joining. Where is the cousin chat? There is the cousin chat. Hi, Red. I just asked a simple question. You didn't have to join. But you joining answered my question, though. Minecraft, yes, it is Minecraft. Mainly because I did not want to start on Final Fantasy VII today. Mainly because I'm getting burnt out again. So it's either I do Minecraft or I play a different game, which, the only ones that are age appropriate technically is Minecraft, Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, and 3. I like Minecraft. I like it too. I don't like what I did over there. I need to fix it. I don't even really like how my house looks. It's horrible. Yes, I do. And just because you tell me to stop does not mean I will. In fact, it will just encourage me more. Pop! Sure. This is technically what is going to be known as the reading world. So this is where we go when I read the Final Fantasy VII books. This is the dock. Oh, it's the light reflection. This is the house. This is the mine. In the house we have 4? Yeah, 4 levels. The main floor with with cats. Rusty and Fluffy are down here. A kitchen area where I do most of my smelting. Downstairs is where I'm technically probably going to move all of the stuff all the chests down to. Because I have nothing down here. It also has a fireplace. I started to make a workbench area over here. And more space for storage. Storage areas that I'm not using because apparently I decided the best place for storage area is right outside my room. Another place with another cozy fire that I need to set up at some point. Here's the storage. Not that one. I have mined over half. The mountain wasn't always like this. It used to be a giant cliff. My room with another cat. I need to put things away. We're just going to start shoving things into this chest. And then we have a few other areas that aren't in the house that are actually across the bridge. Here's the bridge. If you can't tell, I really, 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 really like the firefly bushes. We have a stable with no horses in it because all my horses just started wandering off. And we have a garden area that I have nothing in because I have yet to actually make the paths or figure out what actually will be going in here. Because, yeah. I need to set up the flower garden at some point. It's fine. Right now we're just on Minecraft. We have 1 hour left. Okay, you know what? Fluffy, come here. Come here. The fact that it started coming as soon as I called it makes me laugh. Let me grab the book. Oh, okay, where's the book? Here it is. Alrighty. Red, get your book. Yes, the ff7 book. We'll see how far we can get. I will be using a Pokemon card for right now. Question. I will. Your brother has it. He can send it to you. He can show you. He can input it. Alrighty. So let's start. Do you have your book? Does Red have his book yet or no? Go grab it. So just so you guys know, to those who are probably watching the VOD on YouTube, I don't know if he has the book. No, I don't have my book. Bye, Nubs. I'll probably record this again and make a video of this later. So to those who are watching on YouTube and going, oh, she showed off the world and then went to reading a book. And she has a cat named Fluffy. This is the book of Final Fantasy VII, the remake. It's one of the remake books because we are not going to go into the books that come after Final Fantasy VII right now because they take place after Final Fantasy VII. And as I said earlier in the stream or in the VOD, I'm slightly burnt out. Book I have, okay. So, this is the Book of Traces of Two Paths, and it focuses on Aerith and Tifa. We will start by reading Episode 1, Traces of Tifa. The breeze over the grassy plain swept through Tifa Lockhart's hair, reminding her of home, when she had been living in the village. Her hair had remained forever tousled by the winds howling down from Mount Nebel. Walking just ahead was Aerith Gainsborough, who gestured widely at the sprawling grasslands and asked, "Hey, are you used to this kind of stuff?" Tifa had only met the other woman a few days earlier, but she found her easy to talk to. In fact, within hours of first meeting, they had already been chatting and joking like old friends. Another gust swept the plain, sending the waves rolling through the grass. Tifa turned to face the way they had come, catching the wind at her back as she did so. The amount of distance the party had covered surprised her. When Tifa returned to walking, Aerith had moved closer to her side. "You mean, have I ever seen endless fields like this before?" replied Tifa. "No, I mean the walking. Hours and hours of it. First the Badlands, now the grass. I don't mind it, I guess. It's good cardio." Aerith laughed. "Everything comes down to exercise for you, doesn't it? If I had a choice, though," Tifa continued, "I'd take a hiking trail in the mountains over this. At least that way the scenery changes as you go along, right? Have you ever left the city right? Ever since we left the city, it's like we've been walking in circles. It never ends. I used to dream of having a picnic in a wide open field. But if this is all the grasslands have to offer, I think I'll pass. I'd say this is closer to hiking than a picnic. Picnics are about sitting down, eating, and having fun. Does that mean you've been on one before? A real picnic?" I sure have." Tifa thought back to the days she spent as a child in the village. I mean, sort of. They were like picnics, we just used a different name. "Yeah, what did you call them?" Tifa's cheeks flushed. Her gaze fell as she answered, "Tea parties." There was an amused snort. Tifa looked up to see the ripple of laughter working its way through Red 13's Leonine's pelt. The beast, for he was a beast, at least in an appearance, flicked his flame-tipped tail from side to side as he walked. Though Tifa accepted him as their travel companion, she had to admit it was unnerving by the dissonance between his appearances and his human-like speech and intelligence. Tifa's eyes sparkled. Tell me more. I want to hear all about your tea parties, sure. Even as she answered, Tifa realized she wasn't quite sure where to begin. Okay, I gotta take a sip of water really quick. Nibelheim was a tiny village at the base of Mount Nibel. It had always been a modest community established first one as an unnamed base camp for prospectors whose gill-hungry eyes fixated upon the mountain's unique flora and fauna. Even after Nibelheim had proven itself as anomaly permanent fixture, worthy of a name, it was still little more than a basic settlement in the wilderness, consisting of a few households offering room and board to adventurers making their way up the mountain. It wasn't until the community attracted the attention of Shinra manufacturing that it started to resemble a proper village. The company was in a research of the site, conducted top secret and cutting edge research far removed from prying eyes of the Republic of Juno, and Mount Nibel seemed to be the perfect choice. It was 1960, 1 year following the discovery of Mako energy, and Shinra anxiously investigated all potential uses of the new resource. Construction began on the facility that would become known as the Shinra Manor. Next came the Nibel reactor, a massive undertaking that saw the tiny mountain village flooded with laboratories, the laborers from across the country. If Nibel had ever achieved anything resembling to prosperities, those were the years. But 1968, construction of the reactor was complete, and the inherits moved on. Only a tiny research crew remained, along with the small number of civilians contracted by Shinra to maintain the new facilities. Life in Nibel grew quiet once more. Over the years, the facility's remote location became more of a backdraw than an asset. As the reactor aged, Shinra saw no need to update it, instead throttling operations until the reactor was all but offline, at least in a practical sense. The village had no other industries to fall back on, saw its population dwindle. Everything depended on Shinra. The only money flowing in came from fees paid by the company for land use rights, barely supplemented by the wages earned by the ever-shrinking, consistent maintenance workers. Nibelheim's entire existence tied in a couple of worn-down facilities that the company seemed ready to do away with at any moment's notice. The villagers agreed that something had to change. They debated endlessly over other ways to secure their community's future, but failed to find a clear path forward. Ultimately, their voices and ideas were as fleeting as any of the angry gusts sweeping down from Mount Nibel for Nibel's foreboding peak. There's only 4 other kids around my age in the village, and they were all boys, explained Tifa. We had our own little clique, I guess you'd say. We were inseparable. The villagers started referring to us as the 4 fiends. Those were the friends that I eventually started having tea parties with. Wait, but if it was you plus 4 other kids, shouldn't it be the Fabulous 5 or something? One of the 4 boys was Cloud. The rest of us used to invite him along for our adventures, but he always refused. That is, if you could get a response out of him in the first place. Most of the time, he straight up ignored us. The way that he acted got him into a lot of fights. Until eventually the other boys were always referring to him as the weirdo, or the menace to society. Tifa glanced ahead at Cloud Strife, who led the way on their journey across the grasslands. Cloud would undoubtedly overheard her story. He gave no signs of acknowledgement. Okay, I need to drink more water again. My voice is getting tired. Oh. We're about to figure out what year she was born. Tifa was born May. Red and blue both know who was born in May. Tifa was born May 1987. Yeah, 87. The first and only child of Brian and Thea Lockhart. Thea succumbed to illness when Tifa was only 8, leaving the girl to be raised by her father, and what things Brian could manage on his own. The other women of the village couldn't manage on his own. The other women tongue twister. What things Brian couldn't manage on his own, the other women of the village were happy to assist with. They taught young Tifa to cook, to sew, and all manner of things the village mothers would teach her daughter. Nibelheim was an old way of life, passed down over generations, all the way back to the days of the Republic. Men went out to work, and women stayed behind to tend to the home. Thus, a woman's lot in life was the thought of hinge largely upon the man she ended up with. Emilio, Lester, and Tyler and Tifa. They had been the foreign fiends ever since they learned to walk. Each the eldest of or only children, and their parents were all quite close too. The four spent their days running wild around the village, roughhousing and sharing adventures. In short, growing up together, but too soon in their carefree days would be cut short. The dynamic among them never fully recovered. The death of Tifa's mother sent shockwaves through the community. Tifa found herself the object of pity, someone everyone else was supposed to feel bad for. Burgeoning adolescence only complicated the matter. As the boys neared their teenage years, their perception of Tifa shifted yet again. She was no longer a childhood playmate. She was a girl, and the only one any of the three boys would have been happy to end up with. Their afternoon adventures were soon peppered with attempts to flirt and show off. Still, the mood that they were together remained lighthearted, and Tifa, for her part, didn't mind the silly and somewhat flattering displays. She also knew her line, and was careful not to cross it. When any of the boys invited her out alone, she responded with vague silence. She didn't want to decline outright and risk hurting feelings. Instead, she pretended not to catch on the subtle invitations and shrug it off the ones that weren't more outright. Around the same time, the boys began to speak of leaving the village. These were the first symptoms of a plague of wanderlust that seized upon the young men of Nibelheim. Tifa's friends talked about joining Shinra's ranks to make names for themselves, or moving to Midgar to strike it rich. Specifics of each dream varied, but all three converged on one single point: a triumphant reappearance in the village to take Tifa's hand and whisk her away to a better life. He'd keep her safe, each boy promised. He'd give her a future in their eyes. Tifa was a badge of honor, a trophy to be won, proof of success and escape from the life of mediocrity. It was Tifa's 12th birthday when she was walking about the village in the new pair of sandals she received from her father. They were the latest fashion in Midgar, frankly a poor choice of footwear for the rough actor of Nibelheim's main square. She was concentrating intently on each small, careful step with Xander, when Xander, the head of the village, called out to her. Well, if it isn't Tifa Lockhart, say, remember that litter of kittens we just had over at our place? I've been thinking you might be the perfect person to take one home. I hear that today's just so happens to be your birthday. Tifa's eyes grew wide. Xander walked back towards his home and signaled Tifa to follow. Come on, I've already cleared it with Brian. You get first pick of the litter. She lost count of the numbers of times she begged her father for a cat. This was a dream come true. Inside Xander's home, Tifa peered at the kittens asleep in their little wooden box for a very long time. Finally, she lifted up a small white cat from among the siblings and cradled it in her arms. Good choice. That one's name is Fluffy. Fluffy. And as seeing as she's your cat now, you ought to pick a name that you fancy. He paused for a moment and added, of course, that isn't all if that isn't all the same to you, I'd recommend you just stick with Fluffy. The cat clung to her chest. Tifa ran home as fast as her sandal-clad feet would allow. Halfway across the square, the kitten tried to leap free. Tifa twisted and managed to maintain her grip, and the panicked motion sent her crashing to the ground instead of home. Tifa's next stop was Dr. Sanquez, Tiny's village clinic. The diagnosis: a sprained right ankle. One of my brand new sandals was in pieces. I had pretty bad scrapes too. One ended up getting infected. Between the results of a resulting fever and my sprained ankle, I was in bed for weeks. And to top it off, Fluffy ran away at the same time. She found her chance later that week when Dad left the door open. Oof, replied Aerith. It is Aerith, not Tereth. I don't know who this Tereth is. replied Aerith. The bad luck kept piling on. I take it means that you kept the name Fluffy, though. Dad felt awful for letting the cat escape, so while I was stuck in bed, he roped the entire village into coordinated search. Xander told everyone the lost cat's name was Fluffy, so that's why everyone went around calling as they looked, and that it just kind of sucked. I was pretty upset that I didn't get to name my own cat, but it's not like that was Fluffy's fault. Okay, it is time for more water. Summon, maybe? What do you mean, summon? The cat? It said it was a white cat, right? Oh, actually, I do know who Terra is. Which Terra do you want to know about? Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy VI Terra? I can make jokes here. Not right now. Later? Okay. Well, once, because they're slowly adding Final Fantasies in the number order to Game Pass. We'll get to it at some point. So probably around my birthday, we'll play that one. That might just be what we do for my birthday. No, my birthday's in May. So we'll figure out what we're going to do for my birthday. I'll do something. Once Tifa's okay, back to the story now. Once Tifa's Once Tifa's fever subsided, the villagers began to check on her. The first day she was happy for the company. By the third, her tune changed. Do they have to come to the house every day? She moaned. If they stuff me with more snacks, I think I'm going to burst. You should be grateful, chid her father. Can I go outside yet? I want to help search for Fluffy. Didn't the doctor say it's important for me to get outside and gradually work my ankle back into shape? I suppose he did say that, her father replied. Okay, you win. How about we start the day after tomorrow? I have to wait a whole nother day. They need me on the mountain tomorrow. We're behind on the trail maintenance for the route up to the reactor. I can practice walking by myself, Tifa pleaded. I promised not to leave the village. Her father sat in silence for a moment. Tifa could guess what was running through his mind. To a doting father, the words, I can do it myself, weren't much different than exclaiming. Go away, weren't much different from exclaiming. Gosh, my speech impediment is getting me. Go away, Dad. I don't need you anymore. The subtle shifts in the man's expressions suggested that he was mourning how quickly his daughter was growing up, and that he was a bit cranky about it too. When he finally spoke, his tone was gruff. All right, you're a big girl, but don't you dare step foot outside the village, and don't overdo it either. The second your ankle starts to feel sore, I want you back home and in bed. And while we're at it, her father proceeded to list off half a dozen other stipulations. Sorry. Tifa nodded dutifully. She knew better than to press her luck. The next morning, she was giddy with anticipation as her father readied himself for work. But just as he was about to head out, there was an unexpected knock at the door. The timing seemed a bit almost contrived. Tifa's father opened it to find Claudia Strife, their neighbor and Cloud's mother. Claudia's Cloud's mom's name. Sorry to bother you so early. I'm just here to drop this little one off. Tifa saw the woman holding something in her arms, squirming restlessly, and poke its head to look around. Fluffy! Exclaimed Tifa. Thank you so much, ma'am. Where did you ever find her? Apparently she was near the trailhead, just past the gate. It was Cloud you ought to thank. He brought the poor thing home with him yesterday. I told him to go see you right away, but you know how that boy is. Here I am, bright and early. Tifa thanked Claudia again. She took the kitten into her arms and slowly limped her way up the staircase to her bedroom on the second floor. Welcome home, Fluffy, she told the cat. So Cloud's the one who found you. Imagine that. I wouldn't have thought he'd ever hurt. I wouldn't have thought he even heard about my new cat. With Fluffy's return, walking around the village suddenly seemed more of a chore than a joy. Tifa was anxious to play outside again, but on the other hand, her ankle was still throbbing with every movement. The idea of working it back to health was less appealing without a lost cat to find. Around that time, she had a surprise visit from Emilio. "Come on, gotta get that ankle back in shape," he announced, holding a basket to his chest. "I brought some fruits and a thermos of tea." "Huh? What are you talking about?" "I'm taking you for a walk. Let's head down to that pool at the base of the falls. I mean, technically speaking, it's still a part of the village, right? Did my dad put you up to this?" He asked me if I could come up with some way to get you more excited about your recovery. Said that there was some rules though. No leaving the village, that sort of stuff. The boy seemed nervous, almost giddy, as if he had decided that there was some other deeper reason that Tifa's father had reached out. I gotta plug my phone in. Deeper reason that Tifa's father had reached out to him specifically. But in the time that took Tifa to get ready, there was another knock at the door. Lester had arrived and had also been holding a basket. Tifa couldn't help but notice the trace disappointment in Emilio's eyes. Tifa's dad is trying to get these boys to help him get his daughter out of the house. That is where we're at in the story. Here we go. Though the waterfall in question was still vital to the village's survival, it had never been named. It was simply the falls. Geologically speaking, it wasn't anything remarkable. Just one outlive many for the natural spring water to house deep in the rock of Mount Nebel. The two boys at her side, Tifa made her way down to the plunge pool, gingerly testing her weight on the injured foot. They arrived and were searching for a dry place to sit when Tyler appeared. Apparently, Tifa's father had a word with all three of her would-be suitors. "I brought sandwiches for lunch," Tyler yelled as soon as he was within earshot. "Home-cured ham." Amelia and Lester cheered. Everyone knew the best cured hams in the village came from Tyler's house. The family recipe had been passed down for generations. Even Tifa found herself smiling about the welcome surprise. The old crew assembled. Conversation naturally turned to Midgar, to the boys, the place of hopes and dreams. Up on the plate, Midgar had real schools for the city children to attend, while the children of the slums learned to read and write from parents in the community who volunteered for the task. Thus, the four friends concluded their own level of education was probably the same as the kids living in Midgar's slums. For the kids of the slums enlisted in supposedly the quickest way to rise into Shinra's ranks, their three boys wondered aloud how risky the path might be, how dangerous might it be to survive in the military. Was the fertility rate, especially given in the ongoing war. The other option was money. If you could figure out how to get it. Topside, money talked. You could buy your way out of any trouble. Even as children, the four suspected that their conversations were jumbles of truth and half-truths, wild misconceptions. Still, the boys earnestly chattered on, and Tifa, for her part, found the strings especially relatively engaging. It was rather to let her imagination run wild, indulging in feelings of wonder and surprise of what might await in the unknown, far off world of the city. Tifa leaned back and listened to the boys carry on. "After I move to Midgar, I wonder if I'll ever feel like coming back. Ha! You'll have to if you can't get used to city life. No way. I don't want to be the one that everyone knows came running back home, tail between his legs. I'd go live in some other town. Well, one of us better come back. Otherwise, Tifa will be pretty lonely. The boys laughed, and Tifa replied, I'm sure life outside Nibelheim will be so exciting you'll forget about me. Whew. She regretted the words the moment they left her mouth. She knew it sounded like a plea for attention, but she found, just as she feared, Emilio and the others immediately steered the conversation elsewhere. An obvious attempt to cheer her up. When lunch was over, they left the pool. The boys talked about how nice it had been to eat outside. That was a fun picnic. We ought to plan another one soon. How does that count as a picnic? We barely stepped foot outside the village. No, see, a picnic is supposed to be somewhere close to home. You're thinking of a hike. Well, I'd like to try. Well, what I'd like to try. Well, what would... tongue twister and my voice is dying. Hydrate, don't dehydrate. That's the wrong page. I'm trying to find my spot now because I lost it. There it is. Oh, there. Well, that's what I'd like to try. Began Tifa. Is it a tea party? It is a tea party. It doesn't it just sound so elegant? She's seen photos once of wealthy families during the days of the Republic. They were pictures of her mother had shared when Tifa was still small enough to sit up on her knees. The people in the shots had found nice spots in the grasslands, where they spread out blankets and unpacked the baskets, enjoyed snacks and a cup of tea out in the open air. Reflecting on the photos, Tifa realized they must have been very old, perhaps even taken by her great or even great-great-grandparents. Tea party? What the crap is a tea party? Beats me, but if Tifa thinks it's fun, count me in. Me too. Thus, the Fiends' new short-lived tradition. Back in the present, Tifa smiled softly. The three of them could never stop talking about Midgar, she said. Eventually, it started to feel like it was me versus the city. If I wanted to keep my friends' attention, I had to compete. I started saving up to buy all kinds of clothes the girls in the city wear. When I couldn't get my hands on something directly, I'd go to the villagers who knew how to sew, and ask them to make me the pieces I needed. I was begging the village general store to track down fabrics they'd never even heard of. I went all the way out with my baking too. I was determined to make each treat I brought to the tea party the best one yet. I don't think I could ever worked so hard since to grab the attention of a bunch of boys. Ha! Tifa versus Midgar. I like your style, Barrett Wallace let out a great roar of laughter. At some point, he'd slid up to Tifa and Aerith, eager to catch the tail of Tifa's past. The spring was near, the four fiends' next tea party would be their last. All three of the boys had declared their intent to leave the village as soon as winter passed. The news had Tifa feeling uncharacteristically sentimental. At the last moment, late in the evening, on the day before their outing, she decided to bake a homemade cake She briefly considered cookies, but cake seemed a more appropriate treat for a special occasion. Tifa rifled through the kitchen cabinets, jotting down the ingredients she lacked, and then raced over to the village general store, Emilio's home. Just as she placed a hand on the door handle, she felt her eyes at the back of her head. Tifa turned to find Cloud Strife. Any encounter with Cloud would have been unusual enough, but what really astonished Tifa this time is the fact the boy was staring straight into her eyes. Cloud's being creepy. Cloud's being a creepy kid right now. Typically, when she ran into Cloud, he'd look away and find some excuse to dash off. There was something different about him today. His lips parted as if to speak, and then she saw them move but couldn't make out the words. Tifa tilted her head in confusion, and Cloud bolted forward. He is being creepy. I will say this, because he essentially stared at a girl's back of the head. She turns to look at him. He mouths something to her, and then bolts up to her to tell her something. Tifa flinched, certain that he was about to ram into her. But a single step shy of collisions, Cloud stopped. He leaned in and mouthed inches from her ear. When he spoke, her ear. When he spoke, the words were so rushed and nearly blended together. After dark, up on the water tower. All Tifa could think of to reply with was okay. Cloud nodded and sprinted off into the falling dusk, as if fleeing from danger. Tifa flustered both by the meeting and by what seemed to be an unnecessarily hasty departure on Cloud's part. Scurried back home, she had forgotten all about the shopping excursion. When she walked inside, her father met her with a quizzical stare. The last thing she needed was a line of questioning from her dad. So she pretended to scowl and stomp up the stairs to the safety of her room. Fluffy was waiting on her bed. Tifa scooped up the cat into her arms and slumped onto her knees on the floor. Her heart was racing. It wasn't only from the rush of home. When was the last time she and Cloud had spoken? It felt like months. She recalled Fluffy's last appearance. The fiasco was on Tifa's 12th birthday and had only been the beginning. Had only been the beginning. Fluffy had run away dozens of times since. It didn't take long for Tifa to notice that the cat was actually quite reasonably reliable about coming back on her own after she was allowed to roam free for a few days. Still, it didn't really feel right to ignore the poor thing, so she always went looking. The cat had a tendency to head to the mountain, though the monster sightings were rare. They weren't unheard of. On that particular day, there had been no sign of Fluffy in the village. Tifa had decided to widen her search. Just as she arrived at the trailhead, Cloud came running down the mountain. He had to have noticed Tifa. He refused to look her way. Only at the precious moment they passed, he finally acknowledged her. Saw Fluffy, he said brazenly, right after the first bend. Thank you. Cloud didn't stop or accept her thanks. He continued straight into the village. But just before he was out of earshot, he turned and shouted, "Hey, are you forgetting to feed it or something? It was munching on a dead bird. Of course I've been feeding her." Tifa stormed up the trailhead. Not a minute up into the mountain, she found Fluffy. Tailhead triumphantly high, mouth and whiskers caked in blood. How old was I? would I have been? Tifa mused to herself. She was still in her room thinking back to the even more distant past. Lovey was now resting on her knees, purring happily, her eyes narrow slits as Tifa stroked the soft fur along her back. Tifa recalled that when she and Cloud had been very young, they used to spend all day playing together. Cloud's front door was right next to her own, making it easy to run back and forth between the two homes. As children, they had little reservations about inviting themselves to wherever they pleased. Ah, that little strife boy has a face of like an angel. That's how Tifa's mother had once described Cloud. They had been sitting at the dinner table, the three members of the Lockhart family. Tifa must have been 6 or 7 at the time. For some reason, the compliment made her very happy, almost embarrassed, in fact. Tifa's mother seemed to pick up on that fact, and shot her daughter a knowing glance. Brian happened to catch the subtle exchange, and as Tifa recalled, he spent the rest of the evening in a sour mood. That was only one of the few memories she had of her family while it was still intact. At some point, she and Cloud grew distance. For a time, she wondered if perhaps it was due to some kind of falling out between Cloud and the other boys of the village. The obvious suspect was the accident on Mount Nibelheim shortly after Tifa's mother's death. The death of Tifa's mother. Even if the events that day really had played out as everyone claimed, Tifa felt a nagging sense that there was more to it. Cloud had been pulling away from her long before that fateful day. I need to go grab a drink really quick because I am out of water. I will be right back in a second. Hey Red, what page are we on? You are following along, correct? I was about to say you're close. You guys can share a book, you know that, right? You guys could also see if your public library has a copy that you can follow along with. She asked herself questions as she asked dozens of times before. When did we stop being friends? Tifa rose, cradling Fluffy in her arms, and crossed to the window. In the center of the square, the water tower stood lonely in the day's fading light. It didn't only seem... We're just going to change the... Fading light. It didn't seem like a very convenient meeting spot. Every home in the village had a view of the tower from its windows. Of course, that was possibly why Cloud had asked to meet at night, once the village was asleep. The time exactly what time did he exactly want her there? Midnight seemed to be a safe bet, but then again, after dark covered far too many hours to be certain. In a way, the ambiguity was flattering. Perhaps the short exchange showed that Cloud believed him and Tifa to be close enough that there was no need to elaborate. The tiniest exchange would suffice to putting them on the same page. But if that were true, why did he act so cold and indifferent? She felt as if she could spend all day wondering and not get any closer to solving the puzzle of Cloud Strife. So in the end, she turned to more pressing matters. Hey, Fluffy, what should I wear tonight? Unfortunately, the cat wasn't at the least bit interested in the inquiry. She leapt from Tifa's arms and burrowed into the blankets on the girl's bed. A knock came from the bedroom door. Hey, Tifa. It was her father. When she opened the door, she found him obviously exhausted from work. I'm gonna turn in early today. Maintenance work on the rope bridge was pretty rough. Okay, Tifa replied. Sleep well, Dad. Thanks. Her father paused at a hint of confusion across his face. Is something wrong? She asked. I came up here planning to ask you something. I could have sworn you were in a bad mood when you got home. Dad, even if I were upset, I wouldn't want you bugging me about it. Her father chuckled back. Maybe. All right, my bad. Good night, then. He waved and retired to his own bedroom across the landing. Tifa turned her attention back to her closet, evaluating her choices for the midnight rendezvous. It occurred to her that technically this would be the first time she ever snuck out of the house while her father was asleep. Not only was she going out to see a boy, and Cloud Strife to boot, suddenly it felt like one of the biggest moments of her young life sprung upon her. Suddenly it felt like one of the biggest moments of her young life had sprung upon her. Everything unfolded so fast she knew she was far too excited for any hope of sleep. She settled on a pale green dress, the color of young leaves. It was a piece Emilio had once said looked especially good on her. Once Tifa had herself together, she waited and trying to calm her nerves. Near midnight, she peered out the window once more, expecting the whole village to be asleep. Instead of the windows of several homes were still lit and worn. There was no sign of Cloud on the water tower. Tifa reluctantly flicked off the lights of her own room and headed into the hallway, closing the door before Fluffy could follow. She placed an ear against the door of her father's room and was relieved to hear loud, carefree snores. With slow, careful steps, she descended the stairways, then tiptoed through the living room and was free. Tifa emerged into the night with a gasp. Stars. The sky was filled with countless glittering stars, like raindrops suspended in the sky, coming to fall down at any moment. She wondered what Cloud would say to her up on the water tower. What specific feelings might he confess? Oh, and if he did venture to step further beyond friendship, how would she respond? Did she even love Cloud? Did she like him as more than a friend? She pressed a hand over her chest and thoughts swirled. Of course she liked him, but she felt like it was the kind of like made you want to be together with a certain person forever. That little Strife boy has a face of an angel. Shortly after, Thea added, everyone loves to fawn over Sephiroth, the hero these days. But personally, I like to think little Cloud's going to grow up to be much more attractive. That was quite the compliment. Cloud, a boy from a tiny village most of the world would have trouble locating on a map, declared victor over Sephiroth, the young hero of the nation, and the face of soldier and Shinra's military might. Tifa finally understood. Okay, I need a drink again. The reason her heart seemed to rise in her chest anytime she saw Cloud The reason she grew nervous and fumbled over words whenever he was near, it wasn't because she had feelings for him. It was because she looked up to him. He was beautiful, an untouchable presence like one of those countless stars glittering in the distant sky. Tifa murmured a thanks to her mother somehow, managing to guide her still years after their parting. The tension of the upcoming rendezvous lifted. Her steps felt light as she dashed across the clearing to the water tower. She saw Cloud was in fact there, that he was sitting on the wooden platform near the top, legs dangling over the edge. The last time she climbed this water tower, she had been a small child. As she made her way up, she prepared herself for what might come. She talked to Cloud normally, she told herself. The way they usually, except how did they usually talk? Hey, despite all of her efforts, the greeting felt awkward and contrived. But she wasn't alone. Cloud's announcement atop the water tower turned out to be an astonishingly mundane. When spring came, he said he was leaving for Midgar. She heard it thrice before. He wasn't just going to look for work. He wasn't like the other boys. Little did he know how his well-worn claims truly were. Still, that night was anything but spoiled thanks to the magic of the star-streaked sky. Perhaps it was because she found it rather cute how worked up Cloud was about the grand future he believed waited him beyond the village. Whatever reason ignited the sudden spark, the word that spilled out of her lips next, just where lips came entirely on impulse. Just promise me one thing, she began. When we're older, and you're a famous soldier, if I'm ever trapped or in trouble. She hesitated, then blurted out, Promise you'll come and save me. For a brief moment, time stood still on the water tower. She hadn't intended to say something like that. It just popped into her mind. But once the promise was sealed, it seemed her a thing of a singularly importance. She discovered that Cloud, the quiet neighbor who had always seemed unreachable as the stars, was just a normal boy like any other. She'd come to understand that she didn't like him. It wasn't a special kind of like. It was one that ties up your heart and makes you yearn to be with that person for the rest of your days. The icy sharpness of the blowing winds. Have a good day. Blowing winds blowed down from Mount Neville, signaling spring's arrival. Tifa's 3 tea party companions were soon packed and ready to head off. The night before Emilio's departure, he showed up at her home, swearing he'd be back. Wait for me, he pleaded. In the morning, Tifa watched him hitch a ride out of the village on a beat-up old truck that delivered parts and materials for the maintenance of Shinra's facility. As the truck sped off, Emilio hoisted his upper body out of the window on the passenger side and waved both arms in a wide arc until he and the truck were completely out of sight. Lester and Tyler's day arrived, and the typical sounds of the morning Nibelheim were drowned out by a roar of a helicopter. It was a special treat provided by Shinra for new recruits before their life of service to the company begun. They were given the chance to leave their hometown in style. Lester offered Tifa a crisp, cheerful goodbye. along with a firm hug before dashing to find his seat on the chopper's rear bay. Tyler fumbled with his words and stood downcast, fidgeting uncertainly, knowing it's almost time for the helicopter to take off. Tifa reached her own arms out and pulled him close into a friendly embrace. A few of the village's younger girls also ran up to hug him goodbye. Tifa saw Lester watching with envy from where he was strapped ready to depart. Cloud's departure came a bit later, when the afternoons were again warm and pleasant. However, Tifa didn't get a chance to see him off. A Shinra army truck rolled into the village in the dead of night. Cloud hopped aboard with no one but his mother waving goodbye. His processing had been delayed. Tifa heard, on account of him not having his application papers entirely in order. As for the helicopter ride, the bulk of Shinra's forces had been dispatched to pressing offensive at the time. An aircraft couldn't be spared to pick up one lonely straggler from a tiny mountain village. Thus, Tifa didn't hear about Cloud's departure until the next morning. There was no goodbye, no promise to meet again, no hug. Her first reaction was to laugh, in a way that wasn't surprising. That's how her relationship with Cloud had always been. Then the laughter turned to sobs. When Tifa's 13th birthday rolled around, life in Nibelheim was depressingly quiet. Her father attempted to cheer her up with a great celebration, but all she could focus on was the fact that not a single card had arrived from any of the boys who left the village. She tried her best to bat her sadness away. It just slipped their minds, she told herself. They're busy with their new lives. They're just happen to forget, that's all. Hey, Tifa! Tifa shook the memories off, returning to the present with Barrett's voice. What is it? You all right? You're pretty quiet there. Yeah, just hung up on some old memories. Where was I again? You versus Midgar. Tifa laughed. Right, I guess the next big encounter was my master. Okay. It is 6 o'clock now. Blue Red, are you guys going to bed now? Yep, so you should be going to bed. Alrighty, we'll continue this another day. That's actually like the perfect stopping point, because that's right before we meet her master. I hope everyone has a good evening, and I will see you all later. Bye!